Yo, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Off Panel. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's episode is a special one that I recorded live while I was in Dublin, Ireland's comic shop supreme, Big Bang Comics. It was a blast with 4 guests, a little Q&A, and a whole lot of conversation about where comic books are and how shops, creators, and journalists can work together. It's a fun chat, but before we get into it, I want to share some reminders for listeners. In case you don't know, Off Panel has a Patreon. If you like the show and want to support it, you can back it on Patreon at patreon.com/offpanel. If you do, you can get early access to podcasts, exclusive access to written and audio content, and more. Plus, you can help me do more fun things, like more live podcast recordings. Also, if you haven't yet, take a minute to rate and review Off Panel on iTunes. It helps the show, or at least it does as long as it's 5 glorious stars, thanks to the mystery of Apple's magical algorithms. That's it, though. Let's get to the show itself, as we're getting into the introduction proper. Yo, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Off Panel. I'm your host, David Harper. And for the first time ever, we're coming to you live in front of an audience as I'm here at Dublin's finest comic shop, Big Bang Comics, with some pals for a big comic chat. Let's not mess around with the smooth jazz intro. I gotta introduce everybody. And up first, it's Big Bang's man of comic market tweets and a purveyor of lies about Wolverine's best costume. Say hello to Bruno Batista.
Yo. Thank you.
Up next is the head honcho of Big Bang Comics, the guy who put tonight together, and Victor Creed's biggest fan is John Hendrick. Next is the artist of the Dead Hand, Grayson, and the glorious Half Past Danger, as well as the greatest baker of beefcake in all of Ireland. It's Stephen Mooney. And up last, it's the patron saint of art cred and the artist and sometimes writer of comics like Injection, Old Man Logan versus Deadpool, and the upcoming Return of Wolverine. It's Declan Shalvey. So for today's podcast, I kind of wanted to make this like a bigger industry talk because we have a very interesting group up here. We have 2 artists, we have 2 retailers, and we have me, a comics journalist / podcaster, which I know sounds like a setup for a terrible joke, but it gives us a good group to talk about what the industry is really like. And the industry is kind of going through a weird time of transition. It's like, some people are, doom and gloom's coming, things like that. But let's talk about that. I want to start with you, John. How can shops, creators, and journalists best work together to make sure comics don't just have a future, but a bright one?
Start small. Yeah, good. That's a pretty loaded question. I think.
Do I ask you any other questions?
Yeah, no. I think it's better now than it's ever been.
Like quality-wise, or?
Quality-wise, yeah. Comics, absolutely. Communication-wise, yeah. Like today, we just got a package from Jen Bartel for Blackbird that we didn't know we were getting or expecting, and it was brilliant. And it came with lots of really, really nice flyers and stuff like that promote the book well before FOC, which is cool. So I think creators now more so than ever are far more savvy regarding.
I have an enamel pin from Blackbird Jen Bartel made for Comics Pro, and she handed out to all the retailers.
Yeah.
Cool, we have to.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
But I think now it's better. I think creators are way more aware that they need to sell their books. They need to be in touch with retailers, and that's how they reach their market.
Mm-hmm.
Before creators had a chance to own things as much as they do, I think that certainly helped. The fact that there's so much creator-owned stuff out there, and creators have such a vested interest in their book doing well. Beforehand, like it was, I'm going to work really, really hard on this book, but like some company's going to get all the money and the media rights and the distribution rights and the foreign language rights. They're going to get all that money now. Because the market's different, I think it's actually better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody wants their book to do well, but you can actually do a print now, or because you don't own characters, so it's much. Sometimes there's a barrier when you're working with companies. You can't go to retailers directly because you have that thing in the way. But like you said, because the market's changed, a lot more people can get involved with retailers and stuff.
And it's funny because even looking back at the last 5-6 7-10 years, you see retailers being completely clueless about how to promote their stuff, how to sell their books directly to retailers, because they never had to. They always had like someone at Marvel or DC looking after that. And there was people that have been in the industry for 20 years that did not know how to sell a book or even how the market actually works. Today, everyone is a lot more savvy than what they used to be. They know who to contact, they know what FLC is, they know how to promote their books, and it's something that changed completely in the last 5 years. Totally different market from what it used to be.
Didn't you? So John wrote an article for Sketched that was about like how to market your comic to retailers.
Yeah.
And didn't you say that when you went to Comics Pro, you actually went to Oni Press and they had like that printed out in their office?
Yeah, on boards.
On boards.
On boards up on the wall in the office.
Dartboards.
Dartboards.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And that particular year, Comics Pro, that was very cool as well. When publishers actually, when I would sit down at the round tables and things, and they would kind of ask everybody, much like this, like, where are you from? Where are you from? And I, where are you from? And I go, Dublin, Ireland. And people go, are you John Hendrick? And I was like, yeah, that was cool. And then getting the feedback about that and how important that was. And I mean, I've had creators come up to me ever since and go, yeah, I read that, I printed it out. That's what I did for my marketing plan for my comic.
Yeah. Do you guys do outreach to like retailers or to like journalists or anything? Well, I mean, I know you guys. Did you guys do interviews together? Steven and Declan do interviews where they interview each other on like CBR from time to time, right? Did you pitch them on that?
We're working up to a comedy duo type situation. Yeah, no, I think because I think at the time your first Half Past Danger was coming out. And I had something out around that time too, and we chatted a lot anyway. We thought. We really like interviews and stuff, but we tend to like ones that are where it's kind of
conversational
rather than strict questions, strict answers. So we figured it was mutually beneficial.
Yeah, I'm a lot more reticent about the advertising and marketing side. I'm getting better at it now. A lot to do with these guys.
Raise your voice.
Oh, that was giving me hand signals. Yeah, but yeah, John's right. I mean, guys like me wouldn't be as savvy. I'm getting better. And I think there's a natural reluctance with people like me that we don't want to get involved in the marketing side because it's seen as you're selling your soul to a certain extent, when obviously that's not true. It's just a necessity these days. So I'm coming around to it now. And Declan would have suggested things like that.
I think I reached out to them.
So so I've kind of been taking my cues from these three guys probably.
Yeah. Do you think it's important that like, I mean, I don't want to make this all like, we are the world, kumbaya or everything like that, but do you think it's important that like journalists and like retailers and creators kind of work together to like try to like find a better way to success? Because like the only way we're gonna keep comic shops like successful is if people keep buying single issues, and the only way you're gonna sell your comics is if you work with retailers and journalists and everything. Is that important?
I don't necessarily agree with your statement.
No. Okay. Which part? All of it?
Single issues. Yeah.
What about it?
Single issues are a big part of our business, sure, but they're only a part of our business.
Right. I wasn't saying exclusively.
Yeah, but I think each comic store is different. So for us, if single issues disappeared in the morning, would we feel it financially? Absolutely, but we would still sell more trades.
Right.
I mean, now that you're here and you've seen the store, you can see the emphasis that's put on different things. But
are you fishing for compliments?
No.
I am.
Yeah.
You're so handsome.
There you go.
I love you in Half Past Danger.
Everybody knows that. But yeah, so it's different for us than it is for another comic book store. Whereas I've gone to comic book stores all across the world, and there are some comic book stores where only 5 or 10% of their business might be new comics, and the rest is back issues.
Right.
And we don't even do that.
Right.
I just did a tour of retailers, and every single one was different. Some had pops, some did not. Some had way more graphic novels than single issues. Some had way more single issues than. It depends on your customer base and what's selling.
And that's it, because you can talk about retailers as being this sort of monoliths, because everyone has different shops, different audiences, different customers. And in the end, what works for some might not work for the others. So there's no answer that fits everyone.
Right.
But there's definitely a pro to, or close to everyone working together, the pros, the retailers, the journalists, as much as possible to enable everyone to make more money.
Right.
This is what about, at the end of the day, everyone wants to make more money and sell more comics.
Well, and I think...
sorry, not to...
go ahead.
But just to your actual question, I think it definitely helps like having a retailer perspective, or in even like from our side of making stuff, it's good to know what a colorist's job is like, or what a writer's job is like. The more information you have, it just widens your own skill set. And I've developed a relationship with the Big Bang here over the years, but like they've pushed my stuff, and I've asked them questions, or I'll see how certain books are selling for them, and it may not be of any help to me now, but maybe in 5 years I'll be like, well, maybe I won't do single issues anymore,
Right.
or who's. But the more information you have, the better. As long as, and then sometimes you have to explain to retailers, it takes a while to do this stuff, okay?
I think one of the most interesting recent examples of like how like the market is speaking to creators and everything is like Motor Crush, a book from Babs Tarr, Cameron Stewart, and Brendan Fletcher, like switched to trades. They're now graphic novels first, and I think that's because they're seeing what the market is dictating for their book. Like the people who are buying them in graphic novel stores or bookstores and things like that. And it is kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how people start reacting to how the market is changing, because I don't know.
Are they releasing issues after the trade?
No.
It's only
They're switching to only graphic novels.
But that works for that title. That
Right.
doesn't work for every title.
Right.
Yeah, clearly. I don't know what their thing is, but I would assume that maybe they were losing money on single issues, and it was just best to focus on the graphic novel and aim towards marketing the graphic novel rather than marketing for when single issues were out.
Right, and I think
And they built their fan base, I assume, at this stage. So if their numbers are selling a certain amount, then you're ultimately going to end up losing money on single issues where you could just focus your efforts better.
it's also a way to not fall off schedule, because like the worst thing you can do is like have a book that just completely falls off schedule, and then people are like, when is this book ever going to come out? Like I like the fact Saga is going on a year hiatus, but at least they're transparent about it. They're telling people that.
It's
I think that
similar
helps.
to a more European model where there's not the rush of getting a book out every single month, and people have more time to actually work on the book and do it to the best they can, as opposed to having to worry about when is this in, is this in next week or whatever. And it works for some books, especially the ones that have a readership.
Right.
Not for everyone. This is not something that's going to work for everyone. But for some books, definitely.
Yeah.
There's examples of funny things. For example, Mark Miller always sells really well for us, not in single issues, because the majority of people that have bought Mark Miller stuff with us have bought it as collections, as trades. So now they used to come in and buy a collection every 6 months, every year. We sell a ton of books and not that many other single issues. It really depends on the creators, the books, everything.
Even the Magic Order with Koipel?
Magic Art has probably been the best-selling single issues from Mark Miller we've had in a while, but still, I know we're going to sell 4 or 5 times that as books.
I wonder if that's going to get worse, because like all of his comics are going to turn into Netflix series because of the deal. Like people are going to be trained to be binge readers and binge watchers.
I think they already are.
Yeah.
Definitely. I actually was talking to a customer about that the other day, where they came in and bought 4 volumes of Fables, and a lot of people
Fables
are
is
doing
huge
that
for them.
now. Yeah, but people are just buying multiple volumes because they used to watching 2 seasons in the weekend of their favorite TV show. So they want to do the same thing with a comic. They cannot do that with a single issue,
Right.
but they can come in and buy 5 volumes one go. It's happening.
Well, you can do it. It just takes a lot more space. A
Lot
lot
more
more
boxes.
space. No, I think like the interesting thing that we're kind of talking about is like how the future of comics seems like there's not just one answer for what comics can be like. It's going to be single issues. It's going to be graphic novels. It's going to be digital. It's going to be everything. It's going to be the Kickstarter route.
But comics are not just one thing. Comics are many things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like the way you said that.
It
Your
is
Portuguese accent is delightful.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But it's funny because people talk about comics like it's one thing, and it isn't. Comics are Image and Marvel and DC, but they're also Scholastics and Penguin, and they're also Kickstarter, Indiegogos. They're also people doing comics in their bedrooms without any sense of selling down the road.
Have you read
Comics
my
are
comics?
just your special ones. Comics are just something that can be many, many things. So again, there's not one path
Yeah.
for everyone. There's multiple paths.
So, Stephen, I want to talk about one thing really quick. I'm kind of curious, like for you guys, for artists, can you consider comics as a whole, like the industry, as you work and think about projects you're going to take on, or is it just like you kind of keep your heads down and you just get the work done? Like, what do you think about when you're doing that?
Well, me, I think it's very different for me. Declan is a lot more successful than I am, firstly. So for me, it's about, am I breaking even nearly, is my what's my bottom line. It's a long time since comics for me was just all about the love of it, which is kind of cynical sounding. I still love comics and I still love working in comics, but it's definitely become much more of a, especially since we had a kid, it's become more of a numbers game. And
You're more successful in real life. Married with a
absolutely,
kid.
I am, yeah. But that's true. So I imagine it's going to be a very different answer for him. But for me, it's about, is it can I do the thing I'd like to do? Will that pay my mortgage?
Right.
Which is possibly not the most romantic thing, but it's realistic for me at the minute.
Yeah, when you did Half Past Stranger, though, you had been pretty much at a
I
company
had
for
so much
years.
hope when I did that book, Declan. I've changed.
But it changed when you did that book. It changed how people saw
Oh, totally,
you.
yeah,
You
totally.
know, so and that's something we had talked about beforehand. So
Yeah.
you know, we definitely. I mean, you can't just stick your head down and do the work.
Right.
I wish you could just say that's all it takes.
No, you need to be super aware, like the guys are saying, of what's going on with the market around.
Like if
because
you're
it's fluctuating.
if you're an artist or a writer, you have a certain amount of days, a certain amount of like material you can produce, and you have to consider what is the best way to point this towards or do it in. Now you can't be like, oh well, vampires are hot, I'll do a vampire book. That's silly. You can't go chasing the market to a degree, but you certainly can consider what is maybe what are the worst decisions and avoid those.
Right.
Because you can never know what the best decision is going to be. I was talking to John the other day, and when I was offered Deadpool, I didn't want to do it because I didn't like the character. But I remember talking to John about it. He's like, the book sells really well.
Right.
It's like, does it?
Yeah.
And sure, once I got on Deadpool, that was just like a rocket ship that just took off afterwards.
You're the Deadpool guy.
For a while I was, like,
Yeah.
and even
Still are.
still,
You'll always
yeah,
be
for a lot
that
of people, I
for
still
me.
am. No, that's dead.
That's all
I'll be
Stephen
dead to you, not Deadpool. No, but no, you have to try and. Well, again, it's information. The more information you have, the better your decisions can be. But I mean, yeah, I wish you could just do the work and then it sells itself.
Right.
And everybody acknowledges that you're brilliant and you're super successful, but it just doesn't work like that,
So let's get some advice from you guys, retailers. What can these guys do better to improve their standing with shops that aren't the big bang? Because clearly they're beloved here. But like,
Yes, beloved.
but I mean,
Strong
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Is there-
Acknowledged.
is there like a
Tolerated.
comical equivalent of like card counting, like being able to like play the system or like figure things out to make your life better?
There's creators who are really good at this, really good, and hit all the beats every single time. And sometimes they do connect with the end users, the readers, and sometimes they don't. But there's companies that again are really 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 good at this, and companies that are really really bad at this as well, because they don't need to be good at it because brand recognition carries them through. But I think sometimes, and it's okay for me to say this, right, Stephen? Sometimes Stephen frustrates me, and I've gotten frustrated with him in the past.
Wow, all
The feeling's
the cards are
mutual.
on the table.
No, then
It's getting
Yeah, yeah.
awkward.
totally.
Sure.
No, where I'm like, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that right now. You need to, and he's like,
But
because
it also
at the time he
like
doesn't
just
want to.
in his defence, also
No,
there's
no,
a-
he can defend himself.
No,
Then.
let me speak for Stephen. But I know I sympathise sometimes because it's really hard to do that when you're trying to just make the thing.
Yeah, I mean, but that's something that we don't.
Sure,
know.
yeah, exactly.
We
Like,
don't
you
know,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Where we can see like, oh, did you see this happen this week? And someone mentioned you, and he could go, really? Or it could be like your book is going to be on FLC in 3 weeks' time. You need to get out there and start promoting it. Put up this, put up that. If you've got any prelims, cover. Just get people talking about it. And there are things like that we do with Stephen. And now he's much better at it
Good
than
job. It's true.
not just Stephen, but like or Declan could ask me a question, and sometimes me and Bruno will give different answers because we come from different aspects as well. We have different views.
Right.
But I think with what creators and publishers in particular do now is I think they're far more willing to reach out to retailers because it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot easier. I mean, there's still to this day, there's a publisher at the moment that every time they do an event in the States, they tag us in it for some reason.
What?
And I asked them about
Why?
this because of Twitter.
Oh,
And because of
the comic
Instagram,
market
because
tweets.
of comic market tweets, and just to raise awareness. And I'm like, this is cool. It's good that you're doing this event, or it's good that your book's on sale here. It's good that, but like, you don't need to tag us in everything. And they're like, no, well, we're just going to keep doing it.
Mhm.
That's bad. But I still see it all the time.
Right.
So
When it comes to creators, there's one thing they need to remember. At the end of the day, the people that buy the books aren't the readers, are the shops, the
Yeah, they're
retailers.
us.
And people are definitely a lot better at reaching out about their books, about what they're doing, what they have coming out. But the more that they do, the better it is. At the end of the day, you might have worked in your book for a year. It's your pride and joy. It's amazing. to me, a retailer, that's one line among 4,000 in the previous catalog.
Yeah, it's an Excel file.
So I need
Yeah.
the most information I can get about every single product so I can make a proper decision. So creators, and I know it's one more thing to do on top of your daily grind of I actually have to create, but there's the business side that cannot be forgotten and needs
Yeah.
to be emphasized.
Well, I will even say for someone who does try and keep that in mind, I got into every retailer that I knew, that I talked to, that I had any contact with, pushing Savage Town last year, and I did as much as I possibly could. I was wrecked with so much stuff, but I was in Boston at a store recently, and I arranged a signing there, and the retailer said I actually hadn't heard of this book, but since the signing was arranged, I read it. I really liked it, so I started pushing to my customers, and so she's been selling that consistently for the last month or so. But the book's out 10 months. And I, as much as I did to try and get it out there, it's just, you never know who's going to even hear of it. You don't know who's going to read it. You don't know who's going to push it. It's if you looked at a list of, sure, we even talked about this when you were looking to push
Dead Hand. Yeah.
Dead Hand. Like, we got a lot of list of retailers, and you email and you contact, and you just don't know.
500.
Yeah, and how many reply? I mean, not that it matters, but like,
35.
which but sorry, how many did you email?
Most of those 500.
Yeah.
Some of them were doubles, but
Yeah,
most
and I mean that's time. That
Right.
It
isn't
took me
making
months
money.
of the week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have I'm not complaining. You have to do it if you want to get your stuff out there. But you just never know. Sometimes it just feels like you're just throwing stuff into the wind. Because at least when you're drawing a page, you have something to show at the end of it.
I think if we had writers, they would probably lift a lot of that load as well.
That's
Because
true,
We were
yeah.
writing it and
Yeah,
drawing
yeah.
it.
You guys are
There's
so
that-
talented.
Oh, you didn't read it. So they'd make that much less time to do that aspect
Right.
of the stuff. But I mean, I totally think it's necessary. I just don't like doing it. That's
No,
the
that's
problem.
fair.
But I am doing it more nowadays. You have to.
But you have to. Yeah, you
Sink
can't
or swim, like really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a couple of patron questions for you guys about retail.
Really?
Yeah. People.
Success.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to me about those handsome comic market guys. So what's the biggest misconceptions fans have about comics retail?
Should I take that one or should I?
Oh, please, you.
I feel like Bruno's ready for this.
The amount of people that we have coming here asking for a job in the comic shop because their dream is to work with comics and read comics all day.
Read
is
comics all
staggering.
day. Do you know how many comics I read all day? None.
They
John has
literally-
actually never read a comic. That's a secret. He now
One
knows.
of the
Just
things
picture
I
books.
hate doing is reading PDFs. I can't stand it.
Oh, I
can't
also
stand-
hate it.
I can't stand reading comics that way, and that is how I read 99% of my comics because I do not have time to actually sit down and read a comic book. All the emails that retailers don't open from you guys, I open them all, and I read them all.
Did you read those instead of
And
comics?
we have a Slack group. For
We end
the
up
staff.
reading more comics that are coming out in 3, 4, 6
4
months
yeah,
than the ones that are coming out now.
That's so weird.
We have a Slack group for the staff, and as soon as we get a preview in, we put it on that Slack group because even if me or Bruno don't get time to read it, JP will get someone will know,
Yeah.
and we can talk about it.
I assume that somehow JP reads every comic.
JP reads every
JP
comic.
reads pretty much every comic.
He's reading right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Get to
that's all
work,
it does.
JP.
Yeah, people probably think it's just a way to facilitate reading comics.
and it really is.
Yeah, it's a sales job.
It's the same thing when
Yeah.
people think of bookstores or video stores that you
Video
spend all day
stores,
consuming the product. We don't read anything, we're working all day.
Yeah.
Now, working in a comic book store is as much work or more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So
in the world ever.
Yes,
No.
building and so the dream that you work in a comic shop and you do nothing all day but read comics at the counter, that might happen in some comic book stores,
Not this
not
one.
in the good ones.
I don't think I've ever actually seen you guys reading a comic
Oh,
when
no.
I come in.
Do you want the truth? I haven't read Injection past issue 8.
Son of a bitch!
And I still haven't read Half Past Danger 2.
Most people haven't.
And that's and I own all of them. And
Oh, that's the best part. As long as you buy it.
No.
Yeah, as long as you
they're
buy it.
bought,
Don't read
that's
it.
fine,
You
yeah.
don't want the shop.
But,
That's all that really
but
matters.
there's things I've got like this 4-foot stack that I'm behind on, and some of those things in that 4-foot stack might be stuff that came out 20 years ago. This
Yeah.
is the truth,
Oh, I'm the same.
you know.
Because as part of our job, it's more urgent to read a preview copy of whatever next is coming out, so we know what's coming out, so we can order it properly.
Right. Yeah.
But does that not take all the joy out of comics?
Yes.
Yes,
It's not just me then.
this is business, but we still
When
love
you
it.
go
I-
home and
I-
you get
I still like
it's homework.
comics.
He reads everything.
I don't read everything, but I read.
You read a lot.
I try.
I don't know when he does
He
it.
does not read
Before I go to
everything.
bed,
I know this
I
for a
read-
fact. I just showed him something that he did the cover of, and he just told me, and you're not all not allowed to know what this is yet.
No, yeah, it's,
And he
yeah.
went, oh, it's still
He probably did like 28 other covers.
No, but I bought the trade and I bought the hardcover. I just haven't actually. It's on the shelf. I'll get to
I
it
like
at some
that you've got
stage, like.
two different collected versions of it and you still haven't
Well,
read
it's
it.
because I got the first one and I was meant to read it, and then I saw the hardcovers. I was like, well, I'd like to have the hardcover, so I'll probably like give the trade to somebody who maybe wouldn't normally read comics.
Sure.
You know, that's the plan. Whether I'll do it or not. Anybody want a trade of? No.
So when we were at Comics Pro, I actually had a retailer. He was like, "So you want to open a comic shop, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "And you love comics?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Why do you want to open a comic shop?" And I was like, "Wow, that is a really dark take."
There was some pretty dark bits of that.
Yeah, wasn't there a
conference
person
this year.
running?
He was running the booth about how to close down your store.
That's
Wow.
really awkward.
Now,
Euthanizing a comic.
wow, he's
You learned so much there.
no. This guy's a real. I think due to rising rents and the fact that it had been open so long and stuff, he went, you know what, I'm going to take this online only. He had learned. He set up a table about how to close down your comic book store,
Which is useful.
Is useful. And it was like I was
You
talking.
just close the door and just
Doesn't
walk
work
away.
like that. No.
Burn it to the
Burn it to
ground.
the ground and don't look back.
That shit only involves arson, actually.
Yeah, slow motion walking.
But,
away.
you know,
Explosion.
then at San Diego, I found out that Diamond now in the US have started a program about because it had never been needed before until we're like certain retailers are hitting this age, how to retire.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to do any of those things.
Oh man.
You know, this was a summer job that didn't end for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we all got into it.
No one thought we're going to be like having comic stores for the next 60 years.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, and you know, so yeah, Comics Pro did get a little bit dark like that. But one thing I do like about Comics Pro is there's only like 250 of us there.
Right.
You get all different types of retailers, talking to nearly every publisher. So you will sit down with publishers and you might really like their work and the books that they put out, but you don't sell any. And you might have to sit down with publishers whose books you think are trash and you don't sell any, but you still sit down with them and
Right.
you listen to their point of view and things like that. But
You never know what you might pick up.
I'll tell you who they were later.
Okay.
It is worth. So Comics Pro is like it was an annual meeting that we went to where it's like a collection of a bunch of the.
It's like San Diego, all the good parts of San Diego, just for comics, but just for retailers. So you've got access to creators, publishers, distributors, and it's such a it's
It's
such
like
a unique
it's
way.
the top retailers in the world too, right? Like it's like a lot of a big percentage of the retail money kind of comes from that group.
DC had the numbers and wouldn't reveal them, and I heard loads of different rumors, but I think in that room at that time was about 65% of the money in comics.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so another question for you guys: when placing earmuffs, Declan. When placing orders for an ongoing and established comic series, does a fill-in artist or change in artist impact your decision on how many comics to order?
Son of a bitch.
If so, is it significant? And does mid-arc or between an arc make a difference?
It depends. The honest answer is no.
Yeah.
People that are buying an established series, an ongoing series, don't really care if there's a fill-in for the one issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to order less if there's a new name doing issue 37. It's not going to make a difference. If the new name doing issue 12 is Jock
Mm-hmm.
or Deck, then yes, I'll up the orders. If it's a good artist, actually means increased orders. A different artist is not going to make a difference in an ongoing series, unless
So
we're talking really early in the series.
And I think what you're referring to, because you're like Ermos on Declan, is
Return
because he's on
Wolverine.
Return Wolverine. Yeah, but like I hate to tell you this, issue 1 is sold in excess of 300,000 copies, but that's not down to Steve McNiven. That's down to the tiered ordering
The
process.
second will do better, right?
Second never does
two-
better.
Everybody loves Hot Claws.
Issue 2 means it'll do twice as good.
So
But that's
like,
okay. No one's buying that book.
The
though,
incentives were absolutely
some maybe.
insane.
Right.
I mean, like we
So,
have 1 in 100, 1 in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 5,000.
could you explain incentives to the listeners?
Okay, so incentive covers are incentive covers. Out of my way. Incentive covers are awful, and we hate them. But
I get
what
paid to do them though, so I think they're great.
you don't get paid anymore, so there you go. So incentive covers is for every 100 copies of the regular cover you order, you can order like a 1 in 100 or 4 1 in 25s or 2 1 in 50s. And lots of publishers do this, and it's very, very frustrating because they don't tell you guys, the public, that these are incentive covers. So I get like David Martin over there going, hey, give me that Christian Ward cover, it's amazing. And I go, it's 40 quid. And he goes, oh, but Marvel said it was $3.99. That's fair enough, because yes, $3.99 is printed on that comic. But it didn't cost us like the equivalent cost price of a $3.99 comic to get. It cost us 25 times that, or 50 times that, or whatever it is at the time for that
Sometimes
cover.
1,000 times that.
Sometimes 5,000 times that.
Yeah.
You know? So people might necessarily understand that. So
And that's not all though, because Marvel also has the meet and
exceed variants, which are fucking favorites.
So basically, if you want to get this cover, you're gonna have to have a different comic of the main cover.
And sometimes a completely unrelated series.
So
event.
if you a
Pretty much
customer
all
who really wants to get the Christian Ward cover, they don't realise that you have to buy 300 copies of something like
Okay, we order 100,
Vision or something.
Yeah, we order 100 copies of Thor, but Christian Ward is doing a order all if you meet or exceed on this, so we can order as many copies of the Christian Ward comic cover that everybody wants. If we order 175% or 200% of, say, the 100 copies of Thor,
So all of a sudden,
so we need to order 300 copies of a comic book to then be able to order the comic book with the cover that everybody wants.
You unlock it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Shit.
Yeah. I will also say generally creators don't even know this stuff. They,
No.
they,
no, it's actually
they
very
get hires.
interesting because you guys don't know when you're doing a variant cover, whatever it is
for what.
On Twitter,
I did like a Black Panther cover. I'm like, oh sure, great, expecting to be on Black Panther, but it was a variant on Deadpool or something.
Yeah.
Son of a bit.
Black Panther month.
But on Twitter, you see creators all the time go, oh, my cover to
Thor.
Guardians of the Galaxy is out. Go ask your retailer for it today. And it could be astonishingly hard for us to get a Guardians of the
And
Galaxy.
are people not cool with that when you tell them?
No, people are cool when they tell them, but it's frustrating for us.
Because you'd like to be able to
We'd
sell
like to
it
be
when
able
they
to sell
want.
the things.
There's
So that's
Marvel
why
books
there's like
we could actually
300,000
sell more of if we could order the covers we wanted when we wanted to. Marvel do themselves a disservice a lot of times because they put this sort of gates in what you can order and how much you need to order before you can get the cool cover. People want the cool cover. People don't want the normal cover. And we could sell 3 times what we do because we can't get the covers.
So like in an effort to make more money, they're costing themselves money?
But you see, they don't really see it that way because they know that there's 10 or 12 or 15 accounts in the US and a few across Europe.
Midtowns.
That,
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. God, I love you. But there's accounts that will do that.
Right,
Every
No
time.
problem. Every time.
right.
So, you know, I mean, David Gabriel goes to work every Monday morning and David Gabriel probably looks at the sales report. And sometimes he gets really, really good news and sometimes he gets just okay news. And when he gets just okay news on these things, sometimes they'll lower the threshold and we'll get an email or a message and things like that. And Marvel are great with communication on that front. You know, to say these have been lowered or that's been lowered, but sometimes they're just literally unreachable.
Even for example, like our previous example of Thor. So let's say we have Thor 100 copies. The next variant you have to order 150% of that book. So you have to order 150 copies.
Right.
The next Thor will be you have to order 200% of the one you ordered more of, and it's an ongoing thing. It's completely unsustainable.
I remember you explained it to me for an article once, and I was like, I don't understand what you are talking about.
Marvel
and
math.
it's my job.
That's
Yeah.
called Marvel math.
I
Doesn't matter
think,
who does it, but it's
I think
Marvel
one
math.
time there was like a Black Panther issue that you had to order like 225% of like Doctor Strange.
Completely unrelated, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? How does this make any sense? All right.
I think for Fantastic Four, they were looking for 300% of
Avengers 3.
Avengers 3. And Avengers was one of our highest selling new Marvel books with like Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness.
My favorite fact about the Fantastic Four launch was the fact that the first issue had more covers than there were letters in the alphabet. So they had to
That's
do
not
they had to
usual.
use Z1, and I was like, yeah, Steven. Yo, everybody. I want to take a second to talk about my friends over at Ahoy Comics. They're looking to shake up the publishing industry with a bold new format. Comic book magazines. What are those? Comic book magazines will feature traditional full-length comic stories plus extra material like prose fiction from Grant Morrison, cartoons from Shannon Wheeler, and more. And Ahoy is debuting in September with 2 titles. First is The Wrong Earth, a 6-issue miniseries from Tom Payer and Jamal Igle about parallel Earths, heroes, and vigilantes and what happens when they trade places.
The other is High Heaven, a 5-issue mature readers miniseries from Payer and Greg Scott about a chronic malcontent who dies and goes to heaven, but he still can't help but complain about everything. Look for those in comic shops everywhere this month from Ahoy Comics. And now, back to the show.
All right, so I'm going to change the topic because we could talk about covers forever. And I'm going to bring up a very controversial subject, but we're going to be nice about it. I want to talk about social media just a little bit.
Okay.
The comics internet is obviously a huge part of the comics conversation these days. How has social media changed things for you, like for the better as a professional, and for like, you know, there's maybe people here who want to make comics or are making comics. How can you use social media to do your job better, to get more people to read your comics, to get more people to order your comics, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm going to jump in on this one. I think it's really, really hard to answer that. Twitter started when I think I was starting the American market. I was on 28 Days Later. Around the time Twitter started, and it's like the reach was broad because everybody who followed you paid attention. Now it's just so ubiquitous. There's so much noise,
Right.
and trying to get through that noise I think I was reading something before that it's like, you know, how many followers you have, realistically the amount of people who are probably actively paying attention, supporting your stuff is like 10% of that.
Well, I mean, Twitter is timing based, so if you're not on then,
Yeah.
or it doesn't get enough.
But as regards social media, I think it's like people will follow you online, but whether they're actually getting your stuff is a whole other thing, and it's really hard to know what gets through. You know, like I don't use Facebook for that, but I use Twitter a lot. I've started using Instagram more. I've started a newsletter.
Yeah.
But there's other things I haven't gone, because again it's time away from the drawing board. But I mean, Brian K. Vaughan doesn't use social media at all, but he can afford
Saga
to.
suffers for it.
Yeah, exactly. It does really badly. But if you're starting out, it's just a necessary evil. I think.
You need to get your face and your product out there as much as possible, and Twitter is the easiest way of doing it, even with all the noise. It's the most egalitarian way of getting out there because you don't pay for it, and you can actually talk to people and reach people.
Right. I mean, like, think about, you guys get orders from all across the world.
Literally.
And a lot of attention probably came from the comic market tweets.
It's
right?
funny, I think we're in a position where we're probably better known outside of Ireland than we are in Ireland. We have people that come in and go, oh, I came from America and this is my first stop in Ireland. And it happens very, very often. It's bizarre, but it's definitely because of our reach.
I think
online.
we sell more comics in other stores than we do in our own buyer market tweets.
That is partly
Wait,
because
what?
in the way that we're promoting
we promote
books.
we promote.
So people follow you and then they hear about X.
Yeah.
Some comic.
But you guys make it really easy. Like sometimes I forget I have something coming out, and the Monday beforehand. Well, because I have 6 covers sometimes in a month,
Yeah.
and you don't know what issue they're going to be put on, or the FOC date was changed, or the publishing date was changed. It's really hard to keep track of all that stuff. But you on a Monday will tweet stuff. I'm like, oh, great, and it's just all I have to do is hit retweet. You've done that for me, which makes it. It's just a little extra help. And I know as a creator, I certainly value the help in, like, you're helping me push my stuff, and I'm happy to help you push your stuff.
Exactly, and it happens all the time because we do most of those tweets on Friday and Saturday. What's coming out next week, and we see all the retweets and all the creators getting involved. And like you're saying, for a lot of them, they don't even know their book is out next week, and we get so many messages going, I don't even know this thing was out yet. But it's just getting the word out there.
I'll do my newsletter. I'm like, what's out in the next 2 weeks? And I've looked it up and I try to find it. I'm like, okay. And then I put the newsletter out and I'm like, find 2 more things. I'm like, son of a bitch.
I just want to say really quick, this isn't just these guys that are doing it. I've emailed people to come on the podcast and they say, I'm like, oh, I read your book. It's amazing. They're like, it's out? I didn't even know it was out. And I'm just like, oh my God. But that's kind of how it happens.
Recently, a creator put out a massive, Twitter thing and social media thing, and I was on his mailing list, and he was like, very important, my book, don't go to the comic book store tomorrow, my book isn't out tomorrow, it's been delayed a week, nobody knows why. And I just took a photo of it on my shelf and sent it back to her. And he emailed me immediately and he was like, are you in Diamond? Is that in Diamond? Do you work for Diamond? Do they have the book? I was like, no, it's in my store on the shelf right now. And he's like, so stores did get it? And I was like, we did, but I don't know about every store.
Right.
So then there was a convoluted thing over 2 days where he was asking stores to like check in, and it turns out he got false information.
Oh my God.
That
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah, there's actually more to talk about here in terms of
Yeah, I've had
how bad it is to find
More,
information
yeah.
for
Yeah, we-
when the books are out.
We both had FOCs and then find out that they changed them and
Yeah.
they're passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, how the hell can I don't all the time, not all the time, but maybe I was counting on having 2 more weeks to reach retailers, all of a sudden that's gone. You know, like that happens all the time.
It happens with creators, they reach out to us instead of their publishers because, we're more clued in when things are
Oh yeah,
actually
loads of
coming
people
out.
check with us.
Yeah.
Loads of creators will get in touch and ask, when is our book on FOC? When is our book due for
Hey,
release?
Diamond is searchable now. I don't know if you saw that. You can go on their website, you go to previews, and it's
You
searchable.
can.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it's just like old stuff, and it even says like final order cut off in some things, and it's like we're almost in 2014.
We're getting there. We're getting there. I have to say, like, Comic Market Tweets, one of my favorite parts about it is, this is a horrible thing to say. I'm like very attuned to what's coming out, but sometimes I think Bruno is actually making comics up because I'm just like, John Wick, I didn't know John Wick had a comic. Then John Wick apparently stopped having a comic because you were
John
making fun
Wick
of
is
it.
now going to be back next month,
Oh, that's exciting.
supposedly.
You killed John Wick?
My God.
You can't kill John Wick.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
But no, it's we forget ourselves. We order things 2 months in advance. We order things sometimes even longer than that. And some things might come out and go, what is this book? Did I order this? And
The guy today was amazing who got in touch with us. I'm desperately searching for this book. Nobody has a, can you tell me any information? I don't care.
came
how
out
much
2
it
years
costs.
ago.
Came out 2 years ago, and we got in touch with Diamond today, and we said, what is the story with this book? Because it says it hasn't shipped. And he was like, oh, that's it next month. That code was a July 16 code. And so, I don't know.
good,
John's
good
making an
podcast
exasperated
material.
gesture.
Yes.
For the people who know.
So when it comes to the comic market tweets, they started as a way of me not losing my mind when I was actually doing the counts. And they started because of Ryan Higgins from Comics Conspiracy, because he used to be very open about talking
Right.
about sales on Twitter, and like, we can do that. And it all evolved into this thing where all of a sudden people were contacting us and following us just for tweets and asking for specific information. Publishers were contacting us, pros were contacting us, and it came out of nowhere. But apparently no one else does it, so not
Even it was so intensive at one stage, and we alternated weeks, and we did, and it got, because it takes a lot of work, and we went, Christmas.
especially
is
it's work
coming.
after hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Christmas.
because you don't get paid for
No.
doing
No,
that.
you don't.
And it takes away from you actually being in this brick and mortar store.
Yeah, and we're like, Christmas is coming. We're too busy for this. Let's kill it, and just tell people that we're far too busy. That hopefully they'll return soon. And I bet you someone else will jump in, and we won't have to do it anymore. And we were like, yeah,
We're
that's a
hoping
great-
for it.
That's a great idea. And nobody did anything. And Christmas finished, and just tweet after tweet. Hey, when are the market tweets coming back? Hey, that. And I was like, oh motherfucker. But we do enjoy it ourselves as well. But it is difficult.
I'm curious about, so from a creator standpoint, like,
Yeah.
do you think it's possible can you get work from your social media presence? Does that help you guys get work?
Probably initially it did. We were both on art groups on social media way back in the day that probably got us noticed. Definitely you did. With
Yeah,
Comic Twart,
I
and we
was
had the
on
Eclectic
I was
Mix.
on Twitter. I met other guys from there. We started an art blog, which was Comic Twart, and that was like Chris Somney, Mitch Garads, Mike Hawthorne. Like all these guys are doing like massive books now. So it's, sometimes I get DMs asking me if I'm available. Like sometimes like maybe a Marvel editor will be like, "Hey, are you free?" Whatever. I'm like, sorry, I'm not, or I am, or whatever. I've definitely gotten work from social media.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah, I'd get DMs from editors and stuff as well.
How'd you get Grayson? What's the story behind that?
Grayson, that was Mark Doyle. He was the head of the Bat Office at the time. Well, it was Scott Snyder originally. The boys here had Scott over for a show in, what year was the Scott? 2014?
2014.
Yeah, so I was working on Half Past Danger 1 at that point.
2013 for
13,
Scott.
I think,
2013 for
yeah.
And the
Scott.
guys
But
introduced me to him.
I'd worked with Mark on Northlander, so I knew him
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So I think I suggested him, or was
Your career is all down
It's
to
not
Declan.
that-
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that as regards like how all these things are mutually
Yeah,
beneficial.
well, you did actually introduce me to Scott in the pub that day.
Oh yeah, but he
And
was
Scott
over
went-
because the guys
yeah,
had
the
him
lads
over.
brought him over.
You'd met Scott before that.
Not that he
London.
would have a clue who I was, though.
No, he wasn't in London.
Because he literally said to me when he met me, he said, "You're the Half Past Danger guy."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Yeah, but like you don't know Half Past Danger." And he goes, "No, I do. I read the book." So I of course called him a liar. Told him that was bullshit, and he started naming off the main characters. And I was like, "Oh Jesus, man! I read Batman. Everyone reads Batman at that stage. I read your book too. I'm a fan." Like, And he said, well, would you like to work with us? And it was easy as that, and he goes, I'll put you on to my editor. And then it was just a case of when Mikhail, the main Grayson guy, when there was an arc coming up, he knew it wasn't going to be his. They just got on to me then. So there was a few months in the interim, but like it's all it's like who you know what I mean. I would have been plugging away for a long time before that. Now Half Past Danger did definitely, like even in that case, it literally made the difference for me because it was definitely the best work that I'd done at that point.
Yeah, we Scott have known your stuff had he not read.
Yeah, I don't think there was a chance he would have. I was just another guy doing licensed books for whatever amount of years before that. So yeah, that made a big difference, and that's how I got in. And now, I mean, I was emailing Mark yesterday. My other DC editors, I'm talking to them at the minute. Like, so that's changed. Like, it was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
So it is about who you know, and like any job, it's the timing. You can bump into somebody, and if there's a space there, and you're the guy who's the right time. It happened with Ryle at IDW. I was the guy they needed at the time. Over one email, got the job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's who you know, but it's who you make an effort to.
Yeah. Once you've reached a certain level of professionalism,
everyone isn't super pals giving each other jobs all the time. Like you have to do the work. Like,
right.
But it is timing.
Jews a bit.
And, look, timing is a massive.
Look is huge. Look is huge. Even like realistically, like Declan and I would be on different tiers of comics. Like I'm not doing too bad, but Declan is doing exceptionally well, which is great, and it's great for Ireland and the shop. It is
it's great for me more so
because he spreads it around a bit. I'm sure there's plenty of people here who've benefited from Dex spreading a bit of work or contacts or whatever around. So, and I think a huge amount of that is down. It's about your style,
right?
Like we're both pretty speedy. We both work most of the hours of the day, so comparatively we'd be similar enough. But Declan has got a really crowd-pleasing style, which I'm exceptionally jealous of. Like, so you either hit that or you don't, and then you're the hot thing or you're not. Like, so luckily Deck isn't a dick and he'll spread it around a bit. Like, but you know, it could go the other way.
It's the first time you've ever said that to me.
You spread everything.
That I'm not
a dick. So you know, it's all luck, timing, like any job, and then working hard.
I mean, I think that a lot of it. I mean, going back to social media, I think the important thing is like it's a way to build relationships and get people to know your stuff. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but there's actually like even podcasts, even things like that. Like I had.
I saw the first show of yours I listened to was over a retweet that Declan put out for the show.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, Declan forced me to join Twitter in the first place.
See why I got annoyed with this guy?
I hate Twitter, but it's necessary.
But there was like actually like a comic creator who told me that like he found his artist because they both listened to the podcast, and the artist listened to the episode that the writer was on, and it's kind of cool. I mean, it's just like it's a way of increasing your visibility. It just all depends on how you manage.
Well, it's another social circle. It's another way of meeting people. It's a virtual bar, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
that's how people get together. Once you know somebody's cool through another guy you know is cool or girl is cool, then you're going to give somebody the time of day, and if they're doing what you want to do at the time you want to do it.
Boom.
And you can get poorly paid for that job.
Yeah.
Pearly as in pearls or poorly?
Let's say that one.
Okay.
So I did want to, one thing I think is really interesting about this panel is we're all from places that aren't traditionally thought of as comic book hotspots. I mean, Ireland is obviously a much bigger comic place than Alaska. But how do you feel
Portugal?
Or Portugal. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. So how do you feel like being from here changed like your ability to make it in comics?
Hugely. I would say it's about 50% of his career. I'm not joking.
Really?
No, yeah, we pay the Irish card hard, man, totally.
But not,
everyone loves the Irish.
Yeah,
it's New York.
But not even that. Like being from the west of Ireland, so I wasn't anywhere near a comic book shop.
Yeah, you had the famine, like.
But because I wasn't like. So by the time I got to know Stephen, he'd been to loads of comic conventions with friends. So it was like
he had friends.
He had friends, but like, but it wasn't a big deal. Whereas I'd gone there on my own. Like, I didn't know anybody at all because I had no contact with comics. I had to go very, very far to find anything. In fact, I hate people in Dublin now because they have it so fucking easy. That they have things like this, where they have signings. There's people are coming through all the time.
We talked about that before, and we were saying that beforehand. Me and Declan would have to go to like Bristol.
That's exactly what I went to Bristol. I'd never been to
Comic
before.
Expo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was the closest, or UCAC, but we never went to UCAC.
Yeah,
I think we were just we just came up in comics.
So I found out there was other Irish guys at those shows. I had no idea.
Yeah,
it's different. We actually. I think one thing we were talking about before, me and Stephen, was that the Irish scene is much tighter than the British scene.
Sure.
And it just seemed to be much more supportive here.
That was commented years ago by someone that came over for.
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
And it was saying the Irish scene was so much more supportive and together compared to the UK scene and the American scene, where everyone's afraid of being taken over by the next guy. and no one supports the next guy. Whereas here, all the bigger names like Steven and Deck and Will are always supporting the new creators and trying to get them to a higher plateau.
Yeah.
But when Will and I at least say I went over to conventions with Will Sliney, and he was from Cork, I was from Clare. We didn't know anybody. We just had to go for it.
Yeah.
What's the point of going all the way over to America to not try and meet people and push your stuff, or make just talk to somebody in the bar or whatever? Because I argue because I wasn't from Dublin, I didn't have more of a culture where people were into the stuff.
Right.
I just was more forthright and dedicated to actually pushing myself.
Yeah.
Because it's tough, because we've all talked about, like, especially Irish people we tend to not want to be rude or not want to seem self-aggrandizing or whatnot, but that can be sabotaging at the same time. So I had to learn to switch that off in my head.
But the internet has changed everything.
Yeah.
It's complete.
That's true,
It's leveled the whole playing field. Back when you travel to San Diego every year, you travel to Bristol or wherever. Now you can send the right editor an email and you can make it. Now it's better to show your face at a convention. Definitely, I think there's no argument about that.
Yeah, I think there's
personality is huge.
too much emphasis sometimes on, like.
Yeah,
the
I think
digital
that's
side.
right. But if you're mind-blowingly good and you send an email to an editor, you'll
Yeah.
get a job. It
I
doesn't
had-
happen very often though.
I had Paul Levitz, who back in the day was like, he actually was doing a fanzine. Like, this is the guy who ran DC Comics for years, and he was doing a fanzine, and he would go into DC when he was like 14 years old to like interview people and talk to them and get news and everything like that. And he went in there, and they're like, my assistant editor's out for 2 weeks. Can you cover for him? And he's like, okay. And then he stayed there for 40 years. And like, but that was how it was back then. It was like, if you were in New York, you were just one step away from a job. Now it's like, I think the cool thing is you can be from Ireland, or you can be from Alaska, or you can be from wherever, and you can make it to a certain degree in comics if you have the talent and if you have the effort.
I would say maybe nearly it's a detriment in some cases. If
What's
you're with location, like if you're stuck to New York and you work for Marvel, there's no other like company out there. Like
Right.
I think in a weird way it's sprawled out in a bit that it can
But why
actually
do you
hold
need to
back
be near the
sometimes.
company?
If you want to be an editor on comics.
Oh, an editor.
See, like, I'm just thinking for an
Well,
example of one thing.
There's loads of people freelancing
They're remote now, too.
There's
That's true.
loads of people
Yeah.
freelancing now.
I kind of want to be an editor. Seriously. Sorry.
You should. If anybody
bump.
has any editorial work going,
Not that bad.
Here's my email.
Well, you got to answer emails?
So I just have a couple more questions. I wanted to talk about, like, one thing I think is really interesting. I was talking to my wife, Amber, about this as we were driving around, and I think it's really interesting that, like, sometimes today it seems like it's less important. Like, it's good to be good at something, but it's also good to have like a thing that people know you for. Like comic market tweets, I think, are super important. Or like Declan, you got art cred, and I think people know these things, and so they associate with you with that, and then it kind of expands your reach. Do you think it's good enough to just be good today? Do you need to also have a thing?
If you're really, really, really good, it's always good enough to just be good.
Okay.
But what
But that's like the
percentage?
top
What-
3%.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't agree with that at all because.
Well, I know some people who are really, really, really
I
good.
know some people who are.
And they do
I
one
can
comic
I'm talking
a
about
year.
retailers.
Oh,
here,
sorry, I'm talking about
right?
artists.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if we're well known for comic market tweets.
Yeah.
We need to be really good retailers because if we're not really
We'd be
good
really good at
retailers,
selling stuff.
we won't sell things.
Also, you
Yeah.
need people who live in Dublin to come in, and it's
Yeah.
like I said, you guys have got a great kind of like perception like outside of like Ireland, which is great because so much industry is from there. But at the same time, you need people to come and into the shop.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
it's great that someone in the Philippines is saying how much they love us, and
But they
then
don't
someone
accept
that
us.
lives like 10 minutes away doesn't make it because it's too far away.
Yeah.
It's great to have something. Yes, it's great to have something that you can kind of. This is a plus for us, but it's a plus with everything else that you have to do, and
Right.
that goes for retailing and that goes for doing comics. You might be really good at doing this one thing, but obviously, if you're really good at doing other things, it's going to make you much more employable and make more money.
Like having a shtick, as they say, is probably doesn't hurt. I mean, the art stuff I actually don't really do it that much these days.
Right.
Well, one because it's becoming a running joke, I guess. But it doesn't even matter because people still know that was me, even
Yeah,
though
they associate it with you.
and it's I've just kind of backed off a bit because I'm not. I kind of really don't like how campaigny things get online sometimes.
Sure.
People sometimes they worry it makes things worse than makes things better. But saying that, yeah, sure, having a shtick helps. But I mean, if you're trying to come up with something as a way to market yourself, that's just a bad idea. It's going to go to the wrong place.
Right.
Because you could argue that what I do with Outcred was actively a bad idea because sometimes I was I was criticizing people who paid me.
And you weren't looking for it as a way of getting well known out there. It wasn't.
No.
Thing.
I was in a place where I was at a publisher where I could just do whatever I wanted. So it was much easier for me to speak up for people who weren't in my situation than were. And I wasn't. I was. Well, that's where it started. Yeah. I was, and as long as you're not a dick about it, it was fine. It's just yelling angrily on the internet is probably just not a good idea. But I think. If you're trying to come up with a hook, it's different with you guys. You're literally a business. We're different.
Yeah.
We are a business,
I
but
think
we're
happened randomly. We weren't looking for something else to get more followers or whatever. It just happened one thing, and it took from there.
I think if you're concentrate on being good is the first thing, but also be aware that you are also monetizing your craft. So you have to be, savvy about where you're gonna point your energy.
Mm-hmm. So I did want to ask one question. I'm very interested about comic sites today. Like I ran Sketched. I was part of Multiversity Comics when we were nominated for an Eisner. Let's say that I, David Harper, comic journalist of some level of esteem, wanted to start a new comic site because like there's a lot of comic sites out there, and I don't know how much people, like some of them are great, some of them are meh.
Awful.
Yeah, but I want to know.
Very few of them are great.
Well, so. I'm kind of curious, like what would the best comic site what would a comic site that really works look like today? Like what's the best way to kind of service the industry?
But are you aiming it for retailers, for pros,
everybody,
for customers?
Well, I mean,
because we all have different needs from a website.
Is there a way to service all audiences?
Well, here's the thing, and that's the first time I said, "Here's the thing, Declan," on this podcast.
Is that a thing that
so
you do?
Fuck you. Anyway,
I've no memory.
No, apparently I said it far too often in the last podcast.
No, here's the thing.
Yeah.
People say too much in general.
With that question, one of the things that I absolutely hate about comic sites is there's comic sites that they do wrestling, film, video games, TV.
Oh, try to please every audience.
Try to please every audience. That's not what I want from a comic site. If there's plenty. If I want film news, I can go to Empire, or if I want, wrestling news, I can go to whatever Bruno suggests, or if I want, But if for a comic site, I would like a comic site just about comics, right? Number one. Number two, I don't think that there's many sites like what you're talking about, journalistic now, that have the right balance to please everybody, because it's either very, very serious, very, very snide, or very, very, gossipy. And I don't think that there's actually a kind of middle of the road comic site at the moment, just for everyone.
And I mean, I completely sympathise that it's tough, because the stuff that brings in clicks and pays people, because that's the thing as well, what comics journalist is actually making money doing it? Is there any that are they're able to do it on their own
right now?
It's not the state of comics; it's the state of journalism as
it's online journalism. Like you need to have your listicles and your 10 top superheroes so you can keep clicking.
That stuff never, like, from what I understand, like that doesn't necessarily work. It's easy to churn those out. But I guess my question for you guys is like, what would you like to see more of? Not what do you not want to see less of? Like what speaks to you if I wanted to build a site?
Like an honest answer, one of the things, and I think we all of a certain age remember this Wizards magazine.
Hell yeah!
Because it was still talking about comics, but it was talking about comics in a funny way, informative way.
Well, not at the risk of seeming incestuous here, I donate to your Patreon, and you had a piece about you rated the top events.
Oh, the relaunches.
Yeah, and I remember the title's like, okay. I mean, don't know if I'd be particularly interested, but it reminded me a lot of reading Wizard back in the day, because it was talking about reading as a fan, like looking at it in like the longer scope of
and
things.
This was before there was the internet, and you could find everything immediately.
We literally used to find out our comic news when Wizard was the first thing.
But look, that was a print magazine. That those days are gone. So what would a
but there are things that were in Wizard that I think could do that vibe.
Like currently you have DC Nation, which is a new free magazine that DC is putting out. It actually takes a lot of the DNA from Wizard.
Yeah, like a lot of the people. Yeah,
it's a lot of the
cotton.
Yes,
a lot of the same vibe, a lot of the same funness of actually, because not everything has to be extra serious and let's talk about the ramifications of this. Sometimes you just want to.
You want to get people excited.
Exactly.
Well, like say panel by panel is fantastic. I love what Has does, but I mean it's very inside craft, which I personally love. But I know that's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah, we need to have a separation where the general customer, the general reader that is not really interested in the craft, in how this thing works, need something to get excited about and to read, and know, this thing is coming out next
I think
week.
if there was a way in which you could have a website that had curated, say, like a newspaper does, of specific columnists, and if you're into talking about like social justice, that's your column. If you're interested in talking about
So you kind of
sales, in a way of making it all more compartmentalized, because everything's so divergent right now that everyone's finding exactly what they want in one place, but nobody's getting enough support.
I just want like top 10 artists.
No, but that too.
you know?
Like, I mean, there's no reason why I
those
can't.
pictures were so weird of them
They're
back
amazing.
then.
They were hilarious.
Who was it? Who was it? Someone put up a photo recently of like an inside the X-Men.
Andy Kubert.
Andy Kubert. And there was a picture of Greg Capullo with hair, and I was like, what the fuck? He had no facial hair and like a mop of hair.
And again, and this is back in the day where there was no internet, so that's how you recognized your talent, from those pictures that might have been 5 years old, and that's how you knew what was cool and what wasn't, because Wizard put in the top.
I'm going to tell a quick story about Greg Capullo. Have you guys met Greg?
Yeah.
So I'd never met him before. I used to do this like video show on YouTube called Four Color News and Brews, and we reviewed like a bunch of issues of Batman. And so we were at New York Comic Con, we were coming out of the elevator, and all of a sudden I heard this like booming, "Hey, you guys!" And like this like muscly bald guy comes out, and he just storms up to us. And my friend and I, like 100%, thought we were about to get our asses kicked by this guy who looks like he was like a roadie from like Motorhead or something. And so he comes up to us and he's like, "You have so many nice things to say about my work. I'm Greg Capullo and I want to introduce myself." And then he points at me, he's like, "And you're coming around too." And I was just like, all right, he's such a nice guy.
He's amazing.
He's
That
really
man is
nice.
amazing.
Years ago, before we had him for a signing, we didn't know him and we didn't know what to expect. All we knew was, his profile picture on Twitter, and he was like a big guy, and we're like, is it going to be like a bro or something?
Oh,
of the
no.
sort? No. And then when he came in, he was the nicest man. Him and Scott, they were just the nicest people, and they were there for every single fan. And it's so nice to see someone like that just being
They
there
signed
to
everything.
to
And
give
why
back
are you
to
worried
people.
about
I thought he was going to say something else.
Something else that we actually can talk in the podcast.
They were the nice people. They signed everything, even in the bar that night.
They weren't the last ones to leave the
They
show.
were the
We
last
were
ones.
literally taking
Last
down
ones
the
to leave
show.
We were taking everything down, tables, chairs, everything. They were still at their table.
That's amazing.
They brought Sharpies to the bar. They signed.
4 in the morning, they were signing stuff.
They they were signing.
Nobody talks about us like this.
It wouldn't be true.
They signed a kid's wheelchair, which was amazing.
Gotta find a kid.
That is amazing.
And they signed people's shoes. As people were going around with cons that had Scott
Even
signed
if they didn't
Greg
want them.
Capullo.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Just give me your shoes.
Yeah.
I need your shoes.
That was cool.
All right, I just have two more.
So just
Go ahead.
to your actual question, because I think it is important, because it sucks out there online now, but I do think
It's not that bad.
if I disagree. I think if there was, because I don't mind paying for something if it's good, but you need to put stuff out there. So
Most
anything
people
that I
do, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's
no, well, a lot of people don't.
You're not
you
the
know.
common
No,
man.
I know. I realize that. That's the problem. Because I'm happy to do it. Not a lot of people are.
A
but
lot of people that say they want something won't pay
They won't
for
pay.
it for something.
Yeah, man.
yeah. No. I get that. That
You
would
ran a
have
poll
to
on
change.
this.
like.
I did, yeah.
And what were the results?
Like I think 30% of people said that they would pay $5 a month if I made Sketch like a subscription site. Like 20% $3 a month, and like 30% said they would pay nothing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Big money.
I'd make
Big
some money.
money, yeah.
Well, I mean,
But you'd need to produce more content.
how dare you? It's a lot of work.
I know it is, but if somebody was getting, if people were going to go to that by
Sure.
just naturally
Subscription.
yeah, or just by habit. I used to have bookmarks, or
Right.
sometimes you just you used to go to a site, and generally it's content. Like people just want to refresh and see a new thing. It's
More
really
top 10 artist lists.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, so last question. This is a massive question.
Bollocks.
Is it Wolverine?
No, I'm not going to talk about Wolverine. Of course, I'm not going to talk about Wolverine.
Aw.
Although the yellow and blue costume is the best.
Fuck
No,
you.
it's no.
Thank you, Stephen.
Really? In it with me?
I'm quite fond-
He
I'm quite fond of that
brown
new one.
jacket today.
Oh yeah, there we go. He
No,
was
the
prepared.
brown, there's only 2 real costumes, aren't there?
The brown and what else?
The brown and tan.
And the black and red one.
Thank you, Stephen.
What black and red one?
The new one, it's
The
hot.
one I designed.
It's literally hot from what I hear.
The claws
Hot
are hot.
claws.
The claws are hot.
Not hot costume, hot claws.
So the big question is
We're
like,
gonna have a vote on this later, by the way.
okay. So the big question
Brandon,
before we
yeah.
get to Q&A is like, here's the big question. Like we don't know, people are talking about how floppies are dying. Like the single issue comics are dying. We're moving to graphic novels where comics are just dying in general. What does the future of comics look like? Like what do you think it will look like?
Me, trades.
Trades?
Using trades?
Bookstores, yeah.
Well, but
I think solid chunks of material is what every medium's heading towards, personally, because people have no patience.
because like the binge mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so people, for me, if something's going to be in print, if I'm going to buy something in print, I want it to feel like it's worth it, like buy an object. So, I love the idea of getting more hardcovers, more omnibuses and stuff like that, and maybe not so much single issues, but I like the idea of maybe reading like something episodically, like digitally, and then getting the collection, But people read stuff on screen. People read stuff like on their phones, or it's
Not as many people
I
as you
don't.
think.
really.
Yeah.
I hate reading on screen. It feels like
No,
work.
it's, look, I prefer reading on paper, but like
Although I guess younger people do read.
they're not gonna have the same hang-ups as
that's
us.
true.
Like,
They're gonna read comics on Snapchat.
Oh God. So I had
well, do you see Leonardo Romero? He's gonna start doing some on his Instagram on his stories.
But
Like a page
that's
there,
where the
yeah.
audience is. You have to follow the audience.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that we see, and it's funny because you did that study on the sales of single issues floppies down the years. We still sell pretty much the same amount of single issues that we used to.
Right.
And it's not a dying thing. It's a stable thing. And all of a sudden you get this massive uptake and this series comes out of nowhere, like Donny Cates does Thanos, the thing explodes, and we see this massive spike on the graph. Because there's still a demand for the weekly /
Do
bi-weekly.
you think that's the hobby? People still want the hobby of
I think
buying-
that's a mixture of things. I think sometimes as well.
Some people probably want the experience of
But
coming
they want
in.
the experience. There's a proportion of that which are people that want to buy something cheap, and it's going to explode, and they're not buying it to sell it.
So
A lot
they're
of them aren't.
speculators.
No,
Junior
yeah,
speculators.
but they're not speculators if they're not going to sell it. But people like to know, I bought that for $4 and now it's worth 50.
Again,
They're
back in the
like
day
that,
when we
you
had
know?
Wizard and we all
Yeah,
went to the price guy to see how much our
God, I
comics
miss
were.
Wizard.
I
Yeah.
know. But there's that aspect
What do you think the future is?
of
Comics.
the medium.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's going to pretty much stay the same. I think that there will be more of an inclination of the general public to buy trades, and the thing about it is, I think that we're getting more of the general public, not comic collectors.
Yeah,
buying
we can
comics.
see her by the
So
shop.
we can see it every day.
What's
I mean,
that? The movies? Or
no, it's just I think
just
that
people wanted to experiment.
Only
think-
the trailers. Right?
I think people like, more and more people are open to reading comics now. I mean, when Sabrina all of a sudden gets nominated for like the Booker Prize, not Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
like,
right? When Sabrina gets nominated
But I'm
for
sure
the
some
Booker
people
Prize,
thought that it was and came in looking for it.
It has a
And
TV
you know
show
what?
coming out soon.
Sabrina
Yeah.
the Teenage Witch,
Yeah.
Chilling
Shut up,
Adventures is
probably.
absolutely amazing. So
Yeah, pop culture, the dial is jumping back and forth for sure.
I don't think.
Is
I
it
think-
retro to like comics now?
No.
No, people
So
just
why
like
is it
comics.
spiking
People
then?
like
People
comics
like
because comics
comics.
are
So
a
even-
medium where you can read all kinds of
these-
stories.
So
We're
why
in a
wasn't
room
that
filled with them
happening
right now.
before?
Pardon?
Why didn't that happen before now?
Because you do not have stores like this. You do
Basically.
not have retailers
So it's
that
the delivery system.
part of it.
And the postman, is that what you know?
No.
Yeah.
You need retailers that actually are able to cater to different demands.
Okay.
Whereas back in the day, you might have the classic shop that had long boxes and copies of Wolverine and Captain America, and that was it.
Wall
You-
books.
Yeah, they're too intimidating. Like
You could exactly,
and you'd ask
and you went
somebody,
into
they'd
a
be
shop,
like,
you'd be scared even of
yeah.
getting a better reaction. When you come to a shop like ours, like Gosh, like many others, thank God, you see a much bigger range of books, and it goes for everyone. There's for kids, there's for teens, there's books for everyone that which weren't there.
So what you're saying is,
Wait, if people are used to going into bookstores and finding what they want in bookstores and being able to ask for help,
yeah.
and we replicate that experience, replicate that vibe, they're more open to trying stuff out. More people try stuff out, you get more readers.
So good retailers will save the industry.
They'll help.
No,
setting
it'll
in.
help, but also the
Not that needs saving.
No,
obviously,
no,
yeah.
the stuff that's out there, I think as well. I mean, the stuff that's out there now. There's so much stuff, and it's never been better. You can literally get comic books about most topics.
Yeah, I was talking to, again, when I was on the tour, because I tried talking to a lot of every retailer there, and a lot of them were saying it's a lot easier now because there's different types of books.
Yeah.
If you like
You're
something,
not catering to the same market over and over again.
yeah.
You're
If you liked the book Gone Girl, or you liked the film
Gone Girl.
Gone Girl. Yeah, I couldn't even think of a
It's
film.
a comic for everybody.
But there's, if you're interested in certain types of stuff, it's a lot easier now. Whereas before, it would just be like a superhero. Like if you like
exactly. And
a
people
superhero with a
still-
girl in is the
People
closest you could get.
still think about comics, and they keep going to superheroes, they keep going to Marvel and DC, and the market is so much bigger than that. the biggest name in comics doesn't work for Marvel or DC. They work for publishing companies.
But I do. Oh, I get you.
Raina Tegelmeier, she sells
Yeah.
millions of
Yeah.
copies of her
She
books.
was responsible for 5% of all comic sales in 1 year.
So
So read that,
Yeah.
Shalvey.
Yeah, I knew she was massive, but that's
Yeah.
you have a generation now growing up reading comics. They just are maybe not reading
the comics that
Superman.
we read.
Yeah, but they're still looking for more comics, looking for more stuff. We're working with more libraries than we ever were. There's more demand for comics for all ages than ever.
More
So-
schools, more
Is that across the
preschools.
board, or is that just you guys?
Well, I don't know about any of the
It's
store.
everybody. I mean, I interviewed librarians, and they were talking about how they just have constant demand for it. And one of the big things is like, kids' comics used to speak down to kids, but now they're treating kids with respect.
Kids do not want comics that treat them like morons.
Kids don't want
Exactly.
kids comics. Kids
Yeah.
want comics.
And I think one of the big things that we're seeing now in comics is that there's like more diversity in like how the comics are delivered and where they're
Yeah.
being delivered to and everything. And I think that's huge. Like you have Kickstarter, you have webcomics going into Kickstarter, you have libraries, you have bookstores, you have all these different things. And I think that's going to be, it's like TV. It's like, look at all the different ways things are being delivered. People don't want things just one way, and so
Yeah.
now they're finding new solutions for all the problems they
Yeah,
have. And I think
yeah.
that's the way comics are going to go.
And it's a bit of a symbiotic thing where everything works together. People ask us if we're afraid of digital comics, for example,
No.
if it's going to take away from ourselves, and it doesn't. A lot of times people buy the digital copy and they come in to buy the book afterwards. They want the physical copy.
Yeah, I do that.
Well, they won't
Sometimes.
discover the
Yeah.
thing if they didn't see it online for $1 or whatever.
It's like
Yeah.
sampling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But legal.
Yeah, but legal, exactly. I mean, like Brian Hibbs. Brian Hibbs is a retailer who owns a shop in San Francisco, 2 shops. He was always really against digital.
Yeah.
And now he even admits that it's like additive. It's
Yeah.
like it's introducing stuff, comics to people.
I like Brian.
Oh, boy.
We disagree on lots of things. As you know, because you've been in a room with the two
Yes,
of us at the same
yes.
time. But I have a lot of respect for what he does as well, and the things that he does differently, and to me, and sometimes when I've been like, no, I'm absolutely right on this, and then I listen to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go, actually, you know what, I'm not absolutely right on this. I can learn, so that's a learning thing too. But Brian, when Brian comes out, so like he's going mad about the Walmart books at the moment. I couldn't give a crap about the Walmart books. I think the Walmart books are great because we're going to get nicer editions once it's all done
Yeah.
through Walmart anyway. We're going to get the long-term sales on that. Walmart aren't. But what we're going to get as well is, if I don't know how many they're printing and I don't know how many they're selling, but if 1% of those people go into comic book stores,
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's.
I think
that's,
all of us
you know,
here, we started reading comics probably because it was a newsstand thing,
Yeah.
like your mommy bought you a copy
Yeah.
or something of the store. It wasn't going to a comic book store to get a comic.
The
I wouldn't
Panini,
phrase it like
the
that,
Panini
but yeah.
reprints here changed everything for me because I couldn't get to comic shops, but they're in a newsstand once a month. They had American comics collected, and every month I was able to read basically 3 issues in 1 month, and it caught me up with a lot of stuff.
leads to more readers. More readers leads to more sales for everyone.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Do you guys know who Jake Wyatt is? Yeah, so he's an artist who does a bunch of stuff for Marvel. I think he's doing animation work now, but
I think so, yeah.
I did this big feature on all ages comics back when I was at Multiversity, and I did a survey of parents, and he's a parent, and I asked what would be the best way to deliver comics, new comics, to kids, and he suggested doing a Shonen Jump type anthology series, where you just kind of like the DC Giants that they're doing in Walmart, where you have chunks of story that you can get each week that come out and then get collected in trade eventually. And
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty. It's kind of what they're
It's
doing.
not a
with the Giants.
revolutionary idea. It's been
No,
done.
it was
a
called
lot.
Shonen Jump,
Yeah,
and it
it's
didn't
called
work
Shonen
out
Jump.
in the US anyways.
Yeah.
No, it didn't work at all
No.
in the U.S.
But that's for different reasons. But there's definitely the bottom thing. The bottom line here is that there's no
one answer.
future. Yeah, that there's no one future for comics. Comics are this massive thing that we normally tend to speak of in very relative and narrow terms. But comics are so much more than just the one tiny thing. Comics are a medium. Comics are telling stories using pictures and words. Sometimes no words. Just getting up to that.
He
I'm a
just
living
gestured
joke.
at
I get
Declan.
it, you know.
Yeah, but it's so there's no one answer for everything. Like for most of the questions you ask, there's no one answer because there's many facets to the business.
And that's a
to
good thing.
the-
The market is diversified.
and that's the great thing
Yeah,
that
it
we're
is.
not just hanging on to this old thing that's dying and
Because that's it,
crashing.
if it was only comic shops for the last 5 years, it's not like the people who are getting stories elsewhere would be going to those stores.
Right.
They probably wouldn't be because they're not interested in that experience or for whatever reason. So like you said, if there's other avenues they can reach them, then that's just better.
Yeah. All right, that's it for the main podcast. Does anybody have any questions for the panel that you would like us to discuss?
Should they get up and come here?
Oh yeah, you guys can get up and come and ask it into the microphone if you have any. If not, I can just do my cool jazz
Irish
outro.
people aren't great for
I can shout from here.
Like one.
All right.
Okay.
It's a two-part question. One is to retailers, and one is these guys. We'll go with these guys first. Declan,
Yes,
can you
sir.
explain Wolverine's hot claws specifically to Stephen?
Wait, really quick.
no. No.
I tried
We
that.
have a request for Declan to explain Wolverine's new hot claws to Steven. How would you explain them? Hot claws.
They
It's a really good band name.
get hot. What more do you need to know?
They just get hot.
Can you even do
Well, I can't
this?
really say. I can't say because there's
Yeah.
spoilers. I can't say.
Do you
But
know?
he knows.
But it's actually I was suspicious about it at first, but I got pretty into it.
It
now.
makes sense in,
Yeah.
in the context of the
Yeah,
of the story,
something happens. I was like, oh man, that's even more badass.
He lives in the microwave or something.
All right, what was your second question?
Second question to retailers, and I have to ask because I'm running a Kickstarter at the moment. How to convince retailers to get on board with comics Kickstarters?
So the question is, for retailers, how do you get people on or retailers on board with comics Kickstarters?
It's hard because a lot of times it's not the easiest way of getting comics from a publisher to a retailer, because you're talking about shipping costs and all these things, and it's always a lot easier for us to go straight to Diamond, to go straight to the publisher most of the times.
Yeah, because every comic there, where you're getting into one person about one thing, but you can get on one person about 50 things.
Exactly.
I think the biggest hang up you're going to get, and this goes for any creator who runs a Kickstarter, is because basically you're reversing our credit terms. That's not how we buy comics. Different stores at different levels have different ways of doing it, but an average real comics are like everything else on this side of the water. It's not cash up front before you get the product, and sometimes with Kickstarter, when a product's successful, and then the money goes out of your account, and people wait 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. That's not how we do business. So that's not how anyone does business. To be quite
Not to
honest.
mention, a lot of times if you have a Kickstarter, you're selling a product to the retailer and the audience
At the same time.
The retailer has no guarantees that the audience is actually going to buy the book afterwards, because they might have got it already from you.
Yeah, they've eaten up all the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Yeah, for the retailers,
Oh.
when
We
a
should go.
creator contacts you about their book and the FOC is 3 weeks away or whatever, what is it that you like to see in your email
So you said when a creator.
when a creator contacts?
So when a creator contacts a retailer around FOC about 3 weeks out, what do you like to see in your email?
The book.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I don't like to see. I
you
don't
hate
like to
PDFs.
see
A big,
an
long
actual
email.
explanation
Yeah,
about your emotional journey of how you made the book
we don't
after
care
6
about
months. I want to see a preview of the book. I want to see a cover. I want to see details about the book. I want to see the name of the book, the price.
How many issues they've already made?
Exactly. Ideally, you tell me I have three next issues ready to go. Here's
Yeah, if we know it's
here's
not gonna
the
be late.
thing.
So you want to know the work is done.
Yes, because we're
Before you-
buying this from you. We're buying your product to sell to people.
Yeah.
And we're literally buying this from you. There's no returns. We can't give the thing back to you afterwards.
So it's like faith.
Specifically using.
It's like faith. It's like you're believing in what they're offering.
There's no faith in this. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what
Right.
you're buying. So that's why you need to see the book. That's why you need a selling line that you know what the book is about. If you want more information, then you can ask for more information. But as a creator, if you're contacting a comic book store, be brief, simple, have all the information ready to go. Don't make me having to email you asking about prices and more information. Have all the basic
Because
stuff there.
realistically, you probably won't.
So
and then
recognize-
you'll forget about it.
If I get, let's say, and sometimes we get 20 emails a day from different creators and publishers.
When
and
it
all.
comes up to FOC, it
Sure,
increases.
It edits all of them. We try to look at them as much as possible. So if I'm looking at 20 emails, I'm trying to get as much information as I can, as fast as I can.
Right.
And I don't have time to, again, read about your life story or go ask you about information about the book that you should
feel like
provide
this
in the
has
first
happened.
place. It has happened.
Yeah, it has.
So I feel like recognizing the fact that you guys are busy and that you need to get to the point as quickly as possible, basically.
I think in general with any of this stuff, like efficiency is key. Even with things like pitches, like I see people writing like big, long. Nobody wants to read that. It's just what is it? Chop it down to as much as short as you can. Because like I said, how many emails are you reading? Loads. So
We keep talking about elevator
And
pitches.
but
a way of...
if you open that comic, you're like, ooh, that's the best reaction you're going to get rather than a big long letter that you're going to skim through.
But we keep talking about elevator pitches. Like an elevator pitch is when you are able to talk about your work in one line. Normally it's like, Terminator meets Fallout, something like that.
Inception meets Dread.
Exactly, you need a selling line.
Writing that one down.
A selling line is what the most fundamental thing, because it tells you straight away what the book is about. I know a lot of people don't like to say it's this thing meets this other thing, but it's a shortcut for us to know exactly what the book is about.
It feels cheap for us to say it like that, but
from
we're
our
not thinking
side,
of sales.
Exactly, from our side, we know exactly what am I going to sell this book to.
If your book is Injection Meets Half Past Danger, that's okay, because we will
weird
know.
Book.
But we will know. We will know that there's.
Yeah, you have something you have an idea of what it is.
Even if to talk to customers, what John Gillen said Injection was?
Oh, Dan was really good.
Oh shit, did he?
CSI, was it folk or CSI?
CSI.
What was it?
Shit, I can't remember. It was really good.
It was like something like CSI, like folk
Well,
or
I saw
CSI.
Half Past Danger totally on its Indiana Jones meets Jurassic Park thing, and
But
That's really good.
and that's it. And if you say that to a customer, they'll get, oh, I get what this is. I can buy this now.
Yeah.
so high
Was it
concept.
JP? My brother asked about baby teeth. My eldest brother Richard was in, and he was like, "Oh, what's baby teeth?" And I was like, "JP, how would you describe baby teeth?" And he was like, "The Omen meets Juno." And I was like, "That was amazing."
Good.
And I stole that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
Any other questions? All right, here we go.
So we were talking about like doom and blooms, like Aaron sort of you guys there at the store, and the store the variant.
The variant, yeah.
Percentage, yeah. So you're saying that like to get 100 in store, you get 4 variants, or you didn't lock.
Of a 1 in 25, yeah.
Like 1 in 25. So is that just more an aura of bad business then? Because Marvel are projecting false sales.
Yeah.
You get 100 sales in, but you're only selling half of that.
Well, so really quick. So basically, our like order gates, or like what would you call it? Me too. It's not me too.
Tiers,
Yeah, like ordering tiers. Are they bad for business, basically?
Not for Marvel's business.
Not for Marvel's business, but for us, yeah, totally. For stores, and there's stores that do overreach, and that's why stores have Euro bins and 25-cent bins and things like that. There's some things that when we do the math, it's worth doing. Some things. Or if we have we know that a certain amount of people are going to pick up those Christian Ward covers or those Scotty Young covers, and we know that, right, if we add an extra €2 onto these Scotty Young covers, and we sell the Christian Ward 1 in 25s for €20, and we sell the Bill Sienkiewicz 1 in 50 for €40, and we do
that's a lot of math for one comic.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Times every single comic that Marvel
does. So the Marvel previews is separate now. It comes in its own previews comic book size thing, and the Marvel order form. We actually take the piss out of and work every week. Because DC...
Could you say it louder to the microphone?
Okay, the Marvel previews we actually take the piss out of now when you actually read the preview section, because it's so text heavy, and there's so many covers, and there's so much, ordering information on it. And the DC one is cover A, cover B. Cover A, cover B.
I honestly, I have to stop and take a breather before I jump into Marvel, because it's...
I smoke so many cigarettes. And if I still drank during the day, like I used to, I would go for a pint.
I know, but the thing you're asking, you have to remember, whenever Marvel says they've sold 400,000 copies, 300,000 copies of something, that includes a lot of copies like this. They were ordered just to get the one cover, the two covers. So it's a bit inflated.
Yeah,
but it's not specifically Marvel. I mean, every company has a trick.
Well, I was
well, that specifically is Marvel, but every company will have a way where
we're talking about
it's not a lie, but it's kind of
like for example, we're talking about 26 covers for Fantastic Four, whatever it was. Dynamite gets like that sometimes.
Oh God, Boundless.
We don't talk about that. But it's something that a lot of companies do. But Marvel, because they are the top dog, they're notoriously bad at it, and it reflects even worse because we're not talking about ordering an extra 5 copies. It's an extra 200 copies to get that cover.
Well,
I did it on Uncanny Avengers. I needed to order 300 copies to get the 1 in 300 variant, and at the time I only had 114 orders. But I had an order for the 1 in 300 variant.
Oof.
So what do you do there?
You have to sell it for a lot more.
You have to go to the customer and go, okay, this is what I know I can sell. This is what it's going to cost me to get those extra copies in. I need to sell this comic to you, for us not to lose any money on this. And the customer turned around, but you'll be able to sell all the comics. And I was like, I don't have 300 orders for this.
Yeah.
So you have to offset the and that's why.
Is there ever an occasion? And this is it's just a slight offshoot. Is there ever an occasion where a book where they want you to order more of is maybe a book that you haven't been selling, but you might be able, like it might give a book that isn't getting some numbers a push.
186 people don't come out of the woodwork
fair
for
enough.
any Avengers.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, with a new number one and stuff, we order extra, we'll order bigger.
But we already have a very good idea of what the market is going to be.
Sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples is actually a DC one. Remember when Dark Knight 3 was coming out?
The 5,000.
They had a one where you had to order 5,000 copies of the comic to get a sketch cover with a Jim Lee sketch on it.
Yeah.
And like some of the shops like took a bath on that. Like it was like they figured out that they had to sell basically like 2,000 copies to even like effectively break even.
And that book, I think, was that a $7.99 book?
Yeah.
Right, so it's a $7.99 book, 5,000 copies, right? We worked it out because we pay more for comics over here than American retailers do. We worked it out that we would need to sell that Jim Lee cover, I think, for £18,000 to break even. And
I'll give you 50 for it.
For £18,000, you can, if someone really wanted that, they could just go and buy a page of Jim Lee art.
Yeah.
Right. Which is crazy.
Yeah. So not a head sketch.
Yeah.
And did shops go for that?
Yes.
A bunch of shops. I actually interviewed a bunch of them, and like one was still
55.
55. Yeah.
55 of those were done. I think that was the number I was told.
That was the number I got too. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
But I mean, one shop was telling me about how he'd sold like a quarter of what he needed, and this was like 3 months later, and he was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna get rid of it. I mean, $8 per copy. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's the money you spend, it's the space it takes, it's getting them afterwards. A lot of times it's just not worth it.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, like DC has switched to like the AB quite a bit. I know they did some more order gates.
They're doing ones in 100.
It's creeping in.
They even did they do like a meet or exceed at one stage.
They did meet or exceed on Jim Lee variants on Justice League.
They did like an issue
that's
1 or
one
something. I think that's
before.
fair enough, but like not on issue.
Well, here's the
3
thing.
or
There's I said it again.
Issue ones.
What about like small town mom and pop comic stores that can never reach these?
Oh yeah, they'll never
numbers?
really do that.
Never,
Yeah.
you know.
Sure.
I mean,
And then they just upset their customers because they don't understand why.
Yeah, those customers don't understand why.
How to
and
take
then
on the customers if they can't understand that? Like, if
Yeah.
you can't explain it to your customer.
But the customers don't
but the
have to know
customers
these
don't need
things.
to know that.
Yeah, they also
Well,
shouldn't need
if
to.
they come in looking for
When
that
you go to
cover-
Tesco's, no one explains to you the actual, ins
well,
and
that's why
outs.
you're better than Tesco's.
Thank you. like to think so, but
Write that underneath
and
the.
that's
Better
actually
than
part
Tesco's.
of making buying a comic as simple as possible. You don't need to know the ins and outs. You just need to come in and pick up the comic and you pay for it, and that's it. It's an easy transaction. And not everyone needs or wants to know the ins and outs of the industry. People just want that comic because they saw, again, Christian Ward tweeting about this cover. I want this cover. Wait, are you going to give me like an explanation for the next 10 minutes of why I can get the cover?
But I mean, it's obviously working. They're perpetuating the whole thing, and you've been giving out for over a year about this stuff.
No, more than
More.
I think
So
But there's a
someone's-
core demo
Yeah.
that lap this stuff up because they're the speculators.
That's what I was gonna say.
you know?
I actually think, and Legacy kind of broke it a little bit. I think when everybody rebelled and they didn't want to order for the lenticular covers.
And then what happened afterwards? Marvel kept doing it.
Well, not. I thought they went to like no order gates for a little bit. A little bit.
Month.
Well, that was a very nice month.
That was
I'm
a big
guessing.
deal, and that was going to
Massive
happen.
deal.
And then next month, we're back to
I'm
normal.
back to normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's frustrating. And the terrible thing is, I'm a Marvel guy. Like I love Marvel. I love all comics, whatever. But I grew up reading X-Men and things like that. So
So let's be clear, I very much like Marvel.
So it can be annoying when I get as frustrated with that company as I do, but they're not the only ones. They're
Right.
just the worst.
Also, I want to say at the end of the day, people have said to us about us giving out to Marvel. We give out to everyone equally.
Oh fuck yeah!
We give out to all the companies, and there's things that we're talking with editors behind the scenes you'll never see. But we don't prefer Marvel over DC over Boom. We like to sell as many comics as possible.
It doesn't
from
matter what the names are.
everyone.
And you like them to make it easier for you to do
Exactly.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers sells more copies than certain X-Men titles, which is a thing that I would never ever say, ever thought I would have said how many years ago. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers sells more than lots of Marvel titles. So
Not Hot Claws.
No, I would.
But
God, hope not.
yeah, but God, I hope not.
Wolverine will be big because it's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Wolverine, and I was talking about
And
this
it's the
with-
return of him.
Yes, and we're actually talking about this with
Because he's
Charles
been missing for so long.
with Charles so recently, where there's not many pre-orders for Return of Wolverine, but when that thing hits the shelves, people are gonna go, "Oh yeah, Wolverine! I love Wolverine."
That Death
Kids are gonna
Wolverine
come in and
thing
go,
broke.
"Wolverine!"
Death Wolverine broke my heart, man, because we had like 14 pre-orders for it, and I had ordered shitloads, and I was really, really, really freaked out about it. And it hit, and everyone that came into the store that day bought a copy, and we ended up selling out like by Thursday.
All
So
right.
I was like, I didn't order enough. Crap. This is, yeah. So that's the perpetual like yin and yang of being a retailer.
You're always afraid of ordering too much, ordering too less, and there's never like a Goldilocks point in the middle.
There's never been one thing where we've gone like, oh, brilliant, we've got like 500 copies of this thing that no one else has, you know? It's never happened.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for coming to a special live recording of Off Panel. That's it. Thank you. Woo! You look so disappointed.
Thanks for listening to this week's special edition of Off Panel with guests Bruno Batista, Declan Shalvey, John Hendrick, and Stephen Mooney. You can find Batista and Hendrick on Twitter at brew_bat and John Hendrick 13 respectively. Their shop Big Bang Comics on Twitter at the Big Bang _ and them in Dublin's comic shop supreme Big Bang Comics. You can find Shalvey on Twitter at Declan Shalvey and his work in Injection, Savage Town, and the upcoming Return of Wolverine. You can find Mooney on Twitter at Steven_Mooney and his work in Half Past Danger and The Dead Hand. If you're a fan of Off Panel, make sure to check it out on Patreon. If you back the show on there, you not only support the show, but you get early access to each week's podcast, access to exclusive written and audio content, and more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Stitcher and give the show a rating and review while you're at it. You can find the show on social media as well. Like it on Facebook at /sketched, that's SKTCHD, follow it on Twitter at sketchcomic, or follow me at @slicefriedgold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Kieran Marcantonio, WMQ Comics, Akil, Greg Lockhart, Kokachi, Phil White, Ben Becker, Sean Pinello, Ken Heidelman, Philip Sevi, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, Nick Michelin, David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Paletto, Dylan Campbell, Owen McCready, Brendan Fletcher, Michael Garland, Gary Maloney, Jonathan Nielsen, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Mike Gillis, Adam Bogert, Xavier Files, Maria Schweitzer, Matthew Taylor, Tyler Turner, Dan Guarino, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Evan Blazer, Brian McRae, Ira James Udaskin, Henning Allers, Modern Magic Stories, Nick Hall, Bruno Batista, Bobby Angus, Bjorn Basin, Darren Neely, John Hendrick, Steve Anderson, Phil Nall, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Benjamin Shipper, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Maxwell Schmidt, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Lou Iovino, Nicholas Kesslake, Greg Rucka, Ryan Mail, Adam Highfill, Nicholas Gardner, Andrew Corrigan, Fiona Staples, Chris Morris, Chris O'Halloran, Mark Avnet, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim DiMonacos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to the band Wolfpack, whose excellent track Outro from their album Volmilch opens and closes the show. Give them a listen as they're totally rad. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.